In the next 30 minutes, Joy Research uncovers a record-breaking 308 questionable last-minute mining permits commencing their operations with just 7 days of President Akufo-Addo's tenure expiration. We'll get you details tonight as questions are emerging from stakeholders and illegal mining and its activities biting hard, with the Ghana Water Company releasing its annual report and indicating that treatment as well as distributing potable water is coming at a higher cost. Stay for details. And top story, as always, is brought to you by Telecel, connecting energies, holy insecticide spray and coil. Enjoy a holy sleep. My name is Blessed Suga, and tonight JoyNews is in possession of fresh data which is pointing to the possibility that President Akufo-Addo may have been granting over 200 permits to mining companies when he had only 7 days to hand over power to John Dramani Mahama. Earlier this year, a similar inquiry by JoyNews into the Ghana Mining Repository only reported of a flurry of executive approvals that were taking place for mining to commence between the 1st of January and January 6, 2025, which claimed and gave breakdowns that only 21 small-scale mining licenses, as well as 81 prospecting licenses and mining leases, as well as the mining support services, were approved and taking effect under the last few days of the Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo administration. But JoyNews tonight can confirm that these figures perhaps may have been underreported, and it is emerging that the Ghana Mining Repository has revised its figures, pointing to a figure that is sharply different from the 106 earlier reported, and pushing the figures quite higher to 308, plus 10 more perhaps that may have been issued or approved by the John Mahama administration. So what's accounting for this spike in mining concessions or perhaps mining licenses taking effect in just the last 7 days of the start of January? Isaac Afia J is lead at the data research desk, is joining us with more because earlier Kofi, recalled that the initial report was about some 106 mining licenses that were approved under the SWAL NPP administration. There's a revised figure now, but before we get into that, let's talk about what we reported at the start of this year with just a few days to the expiration of President Akufo-Addo's tenure.
I think on the 24th of January 2025, we put out a report that indicated that some 102 mining licenses were actually starting in the first week of January 2025. So if you look at the 1st of January, there were 67 mining licenses that were supposed to start on the 1st of January. On its second, there were 11, third 19, and on the 6th was 5. That gave us the total number of 102 starting in the first week of January. Now we have an update. We've been keeping tabs on the Minerals Commission data repository on mining license issuance, and if you look at the updates, you can see that the figure has more than tripled from that 102 we saw in the first or on the 24th of January to now 318 mining licenses actually starting in the first week of January 2025. If you look at on the 1st, the data has now been updated from the 67 we saw on the 24th. Now it is 276 mining licenses that actually were starting on the 1st.
And let's give it perhaps a bit of context for those who may be questioning why we're attaching or perhaps linking this to the tenure of the former president Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. The point is that clearly, if you look at the figures, we're not able to tell exactly when the former president and his team had commenced work on these licenses, except to say that the requirement is before the start of a mining license or operational permit, you would have to do that within a space of 60 days.
60 days.
That is the requirement. So even if you're subtracting 60 days from the 4 years of the tenure, there are still questions left unanswered.
Clearly, it means that if you look at the total number of mining lines that has actually started in the country, that's 2,126 since 1995, according to the mining repository. Now, if we do the disaggregation, you would realize that about 95% or more than 95% of this 2,000, over 2,000 mining lines that actually started since 1995, over 90% of them started during the 8-year administration of former president, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. Now, if you look at the number that started during, if you look at the Fourth Republic, 24 of them started during the Rawlings era between 1995 and 2000. Kufuor, 14 started. Then Mills Yukam, 7 started. And then you have John Dramani Mahama, 2012 to 2016, 44. And now we have a new update on the mining lines that actually started between, 2017 and the 6th of 2025, 6th of January 2025. That is now more than 2,140 licenses that were actually issued with their starting within
and commencing their operations within the period. And of course, that's why many stakeholders are beginning to raise a number of questions now, including some of the questions that we've attempted putting to the Ghana Minerals Commission, because this is the very commission that is responsible for updating and revising the figures. I must put on record that we reached out to Martin Ayisi, who's in charge of the commission, and he wouldn't make any further comments except to say that his only response would be, or would have been, in writing, if indeed anyone cares to know much more about the breakdown. But it's quite a complex data if you go into that repository, but we've been trying to simplify that for you, pointing to 308 now, different from the 106 earlier reported of mining activities or licenses commencing their operations between January 1 and January 6. Now it's 308. I want us to also bring in John Mahama and his administration, because the repository is giving us a very striking image of what's been happening with less than 3 months upon coming into office. The NDC appears to also have okayed about 10 or perhaps 10 licensing activities are starting under John Mahama.
Well, we can only speak on the total number of licenses actually starting within the period. And the last time we checked, on the 24th of January 2025, just one license was actually starting under the president administration, his new administration. Now we check, it's now about 10. So that means that now you have 10 licenses actually starting within this period. So the figure has actually been revised from just the one we saw on the 24th of January down to 10. Yeah, exactly.
Plus 9 that can be attributed, to the tenure of the NDC administration with less than 3 months upon coming into office, raising a number of questions. And perhaps we'll be getting into the details because this is all coming at a time when many are asking for perhaps a rationalization of these mining schemes and what the governments have been doing successively about this situation. And it's beginning to bite hard even on the water sector, where today we will be pointing out to you that report from the Ghana Water Company Limited, pointing to how the activities of illegal mining have been biting hard on their water generational capacity. But let's bring in now the Deputy National Director for Arocha Ghana, a CSO based on environmental matters, Darrell Bosu, who's joining us now. Thank you so much, sir, for your time here on Top Story. We're not necessarily saying that President Akufo-Addo may have, may have issued all of these licenses in a hurry, so as to say, when he was leaving office. But it is instructive to note that all of these operating mining licenses were taking effect just within 7 days upon exiting office, correct?
Yes, good evening to you as well, Bless, and I'm really happy to join this discussion. I think that you are raising very fundamental questions that CSOs have been concerned about for some time to come, because there is a problem with the kind of information the minerals repository, the online database is churning out. Under law, they are required to even provide a base map that even allows you to know where this mining is happening and also to provide information on when the mining licenses were approved and all of that. But with what they put out, knowing the start date and application date, you don't get sufficient information to be able to come to a decision as to who really approved what. But, I mean, the way we are seeing that there seems to be some sort of a backlog at the Minerals Commission. They're entering data as time goes on. You can clearly deduce that there is definitely some approvals that were made that are either being offloaded onto the system or some approvals that are still ongoing or for work to be done. Now, if we are coming from an angle where the new government wants to ensure that they review existing licenses and all of that, one would have expected that this business as usual scenario of just offloading concessions, everything will have ceased by now. So it's for me quite still disturbing to be seeing that a lot of mining, active mining licenses are going to start in this month. And a month where the president has said that, look, we are going to review all mining licenses and try and make sure that the right ones are there. We don't even know whether some of these are within forest reserves or are on the river basins and all of that. So there is a lot of questions to ask. And you are very right in going into it and bringing out some of these key details.
The question as to perhaps what's wrong with it anyway if we keep increasing our mining permits without check?
Well, I think, there's a lot wrong with it. Ghana has been superintending over some mining regime, licensing regime that has brought us this far. A lot of these mining licenses, if you go into it, are small-scale mining, reconnaissance licenses, restricted mining for both Ghanaians and foreigners. The question is, where are these happening? If you go to the ground, there's evidence to show that a lot of these mining licenses are over rivers and are also overlapping with forest reserves. And this is where the question, because the point is that, yes, we have a need to mine, but doesn't mean that we should mine all of Ghana. Let's not forget that the land where the gold is also the same place where our water and food comes from. So there needs to be some due diligence, and we expect the leadership of the Minerals Commission to play that role, really playing a role that they are checking and making sure that they don't just grant mining licenses indiscriminately just because there's gold, they are just giving out the licenses. And this is where we're expecting that with the interest from the new government to do a review, there should have been some effort to hold on to any concessions that are still yet to be active and all of that. We can't still continue with the business as usual from considering where we are right now with all our rivers and all our forest reserves and several other prime areas being destroyed because of unsustainable mining practices.
And in the last few minutes, we've been digging further into the repository and also looking at the associated challenges emerging from this whole mining and illegal mining menace, which is emerging in the country. And Daryl giving us a perspective to that. Daryl, I want you to stay with us because there's a far-reaching effect now on the country in terms of water generation and also trying as much as possible to contain these environmental hazards. Guess what? We're learning now that the Ghana Water Company Limited is making losses in excess of some 10 billion United States dollars. I mean, that's unimaginable, Kofi. Let's break down the figures then.
Now, so the cumulative losses made by the Ghana Water Company since 2019 stands now at 10.3 billion Ghana cedis. 10.3 billion Ghana. Let me break this down. In 2019, the company made a loss of 2.6 billion. In 2020, it came down to 939 million Ghana cedis. Then went up again in 2021 to 1.32 billion Ghana cedis. Came to 3.5 billion cedis in 2022. and the last one that we saw in 2023 is now standing at 1.93 billion cedis. If you add all of this, that gives us that
cumulative figure,
billion.
striking one,
now,
of course.
Let's go to the reason why the company says
precisely
that.
because I was going to ask you about that, with many listening and asking the question, how do we connect this really to illegal mining?
Well, so this is what the company is saying. The company is saying that the high utility bills plus increased water treatment and chemical expenses and aging infrastructure are among the key cost drivers of the company, causing them to or compelling them to be making such huge losses. Now, when you're talking about water treatment, we know that turbidity levels of the water currently are high and you need a lot of chemicals. I mean, the cost involved has now increased. So definitely there is that linkage to, galamsey or illegal mining activities there. So there you have it. Between 2019 and 2023, cumulative loss for the Ghana Water Company, 10.3 billion Ghana cedis.
The threats were all over in the central region, and Daryl, come in if you can, about how, of course, they had to shut down their water treatment plant owing to the high turbidity levels. I mean, what's really going to change now, and how do we change it?
Yes, so I think that the issues you are raising really is at the core of cause for we ensuring that we are really getting value for money. Really, if our government and Ghana is very serious about protecting every other sector of our economy, then we will not just think that mining is the way to go, because mining also has some significant impact on other sectors of the economy. Now, if you do a very good cost-benefit analysis, and if you take into consideration these losses that we are talking about, and it's not only the water sector, the cocoa sector has also been very hugely hit by the impact of galamsey, and several other sectors, even the timber industry, several other sectors have been affected. And then there's also the health issues. So there's something fundamental wrong with us if we keep thinking that mining is the panacea to the problems we have as a country in terms of creating employment and bringing well-being. We are realizing that it is not the case, because look at the losses that other sectors are faced with. So I think that we should really take time to really do a comprehensive cost-benefit analysis of this whole mining sector and industry as to whether it is really giving us value for money, and also it is promoting sustainable development. Mining alone has succeeded in bringing every other sector of our development to a halt. Cocoa production, health issues, water provisioning, every other sector has been affected. So I think that we are not really doing a critical thinking and analysis, and that is how can we keep thinking that mining is the way to go. I have always said that we are on a wrong pathway if you think mining is what can save our country. And this analysis is actually presenting the realities of our failure to do a proper benefit analysis on whether the mining sector is that important to our economy or not. Of course, you could say that to a certain extent, but largely in the scope of our development and our comprehensive socio-economic development, mining plays a very small role, but we have somewhat found a way to, within a short period, think that it is the most important economic sector that we need to pursue. I think we need to go back to the table and really think about this.
At least we're seeing some remedial measures now in the last few days of the John Mahama administration. Tell me your own assessment about that, particularly when the president says there'll be no mining ever again in the forest reserves. He's made that clear executive order. The question is that the solution?
You know, you are saying that there's been some remedial measures. I am seeing or hearing rather some remedial or commitments to deal with the situation. We know that the executive director of the EPA has been in the field. There has been a statement on cease and desist and all of that, which is a good start, because between the period of the transition to when the government was putting its house in order and all of that, we saw a surge in takeovers and substitution of miners on site and all of that. So these, some proactive actions coming is very good, but I think we are yet to really see the remedial measures. We are yet to see actions to really restore our rivers, actions to stop the miners. I mean, we have our teams on the ground who are constantly having to deal with illegal miners encroaching on forest reserves, and some also really actively now working in rivers across the country. So I don't think we are there yet. It is just early days of making statement upon statement. We want to see the real action on the ground, and that is when maybe we can make a very good assessment of what has been done so far.
A lot of reactions greeting this as well. Grateful, Daryl. You might want to stay on with us because Dr. Tony Obin is also joining the conversation. He's the president and founder of the African Institute for the Extractive Industries, also former boss of the Minerals Commission. At least we're grateful that you're providing your perspective now, knowing that the Mineral Commission is tight-lipped on the latest that we're finding in terms of their revised repository. 318 in all in terms of the mining activities that will be commencing operations just this month alone. 10 owing to perhaps the John Mahama administration, 308 to the Akufo-Addo era. For you, you've worked there. Is there anything, practically wrong with this?
Yes, thank you very much, and good evening to your listeners and your viewers as well, if it's on TV. Now, the process of granting a mineral license is very complex, and it's a long one. That's why we have, the law provides for, I think, 150 days maximum. That is 90 days for the Minerals Commission, and then 60 days for the minister to approve of it. The tendency is for the thing to be piled up somewhere and to be signed in a very short period. That the process would have gone through for a very long time, but it's gone to, oftentimes it happens, it's gone to pile up at the minister's office. But for 300 applications to be made within a short period, that will sound quite strange. And here I need to get more information to be able to make a very informed decision or commentary on this. But it would definitely be very difficult to, in fact, complete one mineral license application within, sometimes even within 150 days, you don't get it done. I know the Minerals Commission will do it quicker, but sometimes it gets stuck at the minister's desk.
Be it as it may, there's the starting date, which obviously we can work with in terms of the, the two ends to the debate. The start date obviously amounts to the 318 based on the repository and what they are telling us. So be it as it may, with or without the 150-day threshold you're referring to, as many as 318 now will be commencing their mining activities. It appears that we're not having any guardrails to how many more companies can just go ahead and mine. Is that not perhaps a hazard to us?
Yes, that's quite strange, especially coming at a time when there was so much noise about the effect of largely small-scale mining. I don't know what form of licenses were granted. If it's mining leases for large scale, its effect may be different. But if it were granted for small scale miners, again, the effect there would also be quite different. And also, if they were granted within the forest, the production forest reserve, it will also have a different implication. So I would be surprised. I'd be surprised that within a short period, over 300 licenses will be issued, and they would have gone through all the processes of ensuring that they were properly done. It's a very tedious work, it's a complex work. It has to do with a lot of investigations before the grant of the license. So to be done in a very short period, you want to find out why that happened. But there's also express work. Depend upon who is applying for it.
And Daryl Bosso was just giving us his thoughts on the directive from the President John Mahama. Clearly directing that no more mining permits within forest reserves. In your estimation, sufficient measure?
I think so. I think that the two directives that are really exciting is mining on water bodies, which indeed is not a new law or even a new directive. It is just pushing and implementing what the law says. You don't have to mine on water bodies. So you would call it zero tolerance on mining on water bodies. So that's what the law says. But if it is in the forest reserve, based on LI 2462, then the directive is even more important. Because if that directive hadn't come out, people would have gone under that law that has yet to be repealed to acquire licenses. It will be legal for anyone to apply for license under that law. But thank God the president has said there should be no issuance of licenses of any form in the forest reserves. And I think that's a step in the right direction. But having said that, there are people who also go there without licenses to go and mine. And I think they are the major problem. You know, they just would go there and start mining because they suspect there are minerals there. But the directive itself is a very good one.
Right. We need to go. Daryl, your final comments on this?
No, my final comment is that...
it's very good to know that there is some maximum, but I think we need to get to the bottom of some of these uncertainties that are popping up online, and to also know the efficiency with which the Minerals Commission are updating the commission. Because if you are really going to review some of these mining licenses, then we should be seeing more of these things coming up. I think we need to take a pause, and then really do the right thing going forward.
Grateful to you, gentlemen. Dr. Tony Open, President and founder of the African Institute for the Extractive Industries and former Minerals Commission boss. Also grateful to you, Daryl Bosso, Deputy National Director for Arocha Ghana. Newsnight is next.